Alright, in this video I'll be reviewing the problems that are on the review for our graphing test. So first of all, it says graph the points 1, negative 2, and there's 3 others there. So we're going to want to go, starting at the origin, we're going to want to go 1 to the right, or in the x direction, positive x direction, and down 2, since we're going in the negative y direction. So that puts us right there. Negative 4, negative 5 will go 4 left and down 4. And 0, 4, we're not going to move in the x direction, and we'll go up 4. And then finally negative 5, so we're going left and up 2 to get to negative 5, 2. Which point is located in quadrant 4? Well, you got to remember quadrant 1 starts in the upper right hand corner where x and y are both positive, and then we go counterclockwise. One of the things I told you is you could use a C to help you remember the direction there. But anyway, the point that's in the fourth quadrant would be the point 1, negative 2. Alright, let's move on. On number 2 it says find the slope of each line. Be sure to use 2 nice points to find the slope. In other words, don't estimate. Make sure that each point is meeting at where the x and y lines come together, or where the crosses are. So you can see that 0, 1 is on the graph, and also 4, negative 2. You might have chosen negative 4, 4. It really doesn't matter which 2 you use. At this point we can do rise over run. That's how we visually can determine the slope of a line. And in this case we're going to go from the point on the left, so we're going to have to go down 3. So that'll be a rise of negative 3. And then our run is 4, since we went 4 to the right. So the slope here is negative 3/4. And in fact, you can tell that this line has a slope that's negative because from left to right it goes down. And the other thing I mentioned again is always I would encourage you to start with the point on the left. And if you do that, your run's always going to be positive. Let's move on to the next one. So you can see there's a couple of points that are what I'd call nice points. 0, negative 1, and 3, 1. And then we'll find the slope using rise over run. So we're going to have to rise 2 and run 3. And so the slope is 2/3. Now on this last one, you can tell just by looking, this slope is 0. In fact, I called it old man slope. It's nice and flat. But we could also pick a couple of points and do rise over run. Notice there is no rise, and the run can be whatever you want it to be depending on the points you choose. In this case it's 2. Either way, you can get a slope of 0, or determine that the slope is 0. Let's move on to number 3. So it says find the slope of the line passing through the given points. So what we learned is we have a slope formula, and again you need to have that memorized, and it's y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And all we did was, well, basically, first of all, you need to know that that's what this is for. This slope formula is to find the slope of a line given 2 points on the line. So in this case we're going to call that my first point, and the second point 1, 2. And so now we just plug in the numbers. So y sub 2 would be 2 minus y sub 1, which is 5. And in the denominator we're going to have x sub 2, which is 1, minus x sub 1, which is 13. So again, I want to remind you that all we're doing is subtracting the y values of our points. That gives us the rise. We call it also the change in y. The run is determined by subtracting the x values. And the key is you want to always start at the same point when you do that. So we chose 2 minus 5. So we want to start again at that same point and be 1 minus 13. But if you just label the way that I did, you can just plug the numbers in and this will work every time. So we're going to get negative 3 over negative 12. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, so we're going to end up with 1/4 when we reduce that. So let me, on part B, I'll go ahead and write the formula. And again, I'll label my points. And we're just going to plug in the numbers. It's going to be 5 minus negative 2 in the numerator, and then negative 1 minus 5 in the denominator. And notice in the numerator there, you're subtracting a negative. You got to be real careful in a situation like that. That's where people commonly will make a sign error. So this becomes 5 plus 2 over negative 6, which is negative 7/6. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the last problem here. And so here we have 5 minus 2 over negative 3 minus negative 3. So notice that's adding 3 in the denominator. We add the opposite. And so this is undefined. If you were to actually draw the line that goes through these 2 points, you would see that it's a vertical line. We know vertical lines have slopes that are undefined. All right, number 4. To find x and y intercepts, we're either letting x be 0 or y be 0. So I always make a little table. Let's choose x to be 0, which means we're finding the y-intercept. So let's plug 0 into our equation. And negative 5 times 0 is just 0. And 0 plus 4y is 4y. And now we're going to get negative 5 when we solve that. And so 0, negative 5 is on the graph. Let's now find the x-intercept by letting y be 0. And so we'll do the same thing. We get negative 5x equals negative 20, which means x is going to be 4. So when we choose y to be 0, we get x to be 4. So notice the x and y intercepts are points, and we can use these 2 points to draw the graph. And there we go. We'll do the same thing on the next one here. And when you let x be 0, you get negative 8y equals 4. We'll divide each side by negative 8. And we're going to get negative 1/2 here. If we let y be 0, we get x minus 8 times 0 equals 4. We're going to get x equals 4 here. And again, I'll go ahead and graph those 2 points and draw the line through them, and that's our graph. So that's one of the 3 methods we learned for graphing a line. Let's move on to number 5. So it says for the equation 3x minus 2y equals 8, solve for y, determine the slope and y-intercept, and then graph. So let's go ahead and do that. So to solve for y, we're going to need to divide by negative 2, and we're going to have to get rid of that 3x term by subtracting 3x on both sides. We always will add or subtract first in a situation like this. Notice we're going to be left with negative 2y is equal to negative 3x plus 8. Be careful that you don't add those together. Negative 3x and 8 have, they're not like terms. One has an x and one doesn't. And we'll put the x term first. Notice the negative 3x is still negative, and we had a positive 8. We write that using addition. So now we just need to divide by negative 2. Now notice on the right side I divided each term by negative 2. I could have started by dividing the whole side by negative 2, but then the next step would be to rewrite it the way I just did it. So it's just easier to divide each term by negative 2. And so finally we get y is equal to 3/2 x plus a negative 4. We'll write that as minus 4. So why did we solve for y? Well, notice this is now in what we call slope-intercept form, the mx plus b form, y equals mx plus b. Actually, let me go ahead and write that. So when we're solved for y, we know the slope of the line, which is 3/2, and the y-intercept will be 0, comma, that number at the end, which in this case is negative 4. Again, remember the y-intercept is a point. So now we can plot our point 0, negative 4, and then we'll rise 3 and run 2. Remember, our slope is 3 over 2, which is rise over run. And that puts us at the point 2, negative 1, and we can draw the line. And in fact, I could go from that point we just got up another 3 units and write 2, and we would keep landing on the line if we keep applying the slope. So on number 6, notice it's really the same problem as what we did in 5. It's just I didn't tell you what to do. If I solve for y, I'll know the slope and y-intercept, so that's what I want to do. So we'll subtract 2x on both sides. Notice that's a negative 1y, so we'll need to divide everything by negative 1. I also could think of it as multiplying each side by negative 1. In any case, all our signs change. The minus 1y became a plus y, the minus 2x became a plus 2x, and the plus 3 became a minus 3. And so our slope here is, remember we have to find slope and y-intercept. Slope here is 2, and the y-intercept is 0, negative 3. So we'll do the same thing with part B, subtract 3x on both sides. And now we'll need to divide by 5. So we're going to get y equals, and that'll be negative 3/5 x minus 4/5. So our slope here is negative 3/5, and the y-intercept is the point 0, negative 4/5. Let's move on. So here it says graph each of the following using the method of your choice. Now on number 7, this is in slope-intercept form, that mx plus b form, and this is why we have that form. If an equation's in this form, it's really easy to graph. We know our slope here is negative 1/2. I'm going to put the negative in the numerator, although I could put it in the denominator. It really doesn't matter. You just don't want to make the numerator and denominator negative. And the y-intercept would be 0, 3. So let's plot the point 0, 3. We'll go down 1 and write 2. And we could do that a second time. We could do it as many times as we want. I'm going to go ahead and draw the line here. Number 8 is one of our special cases. X equals a number is always a vertical line. If we had y equals a number, that would be a horizontal line. So the way I usually do these is I go to negative, where x is equal to negative 3, and I draw a vertical line. Now, if you forget, or you tend to forget whether it's vertical or horizontal, you could always make a table of values and just choose your x values to all be negative 3, because x is negative 3 here. Y can be anything you want. I always try to pick nice numbers to go with my x's here, so I'll do 0, 1, and 2. I could choose anything though, but I want to be close to the origin here. These are nice points, and in fact there's the 3 points that I just found in the table. Alright, number 9, definitely it looks like we should just solve this for y, and then we can use the slope and the y-intercept to graph here. So we're going to divide everything by negative 1, and so we'll get y is equal to 3x minus 2. So our slope is 3, and we're going to start at our y-intercept, which is 0, negative 2. So that's on there. Let's go ahead and rise 3 and run 1. So up 3, right 1. And there's our graph. And notice I did a second point. You could continue going up 3 and right 1, and you'll still keep landing on the line. In fact, from any point, you could also go down 3 and left 1. And notice that still would represent a slope of 3. All right, let's move on. In these three, well, let's look at number 10 here. First of all, this is in slope-intercept form. It's just maybe not as clear what our y-intercept is. You could think of it as being plus 0 to the right of the 2/3 x. Our y-intercept, well, first of all, our slope is 2/3, but our y-intercept is going to be 0, 0. So we start at the origin, and we're going to go up 2 and right 3. which puts us at the point 32. And so there's your line. Now in number 11, you kind of have a choice here. We can always solve for y and use the slope in the intercept. But in this case, actually using the intercepts is a pretty good choice because the -2 and 4 are both divisors of -4. So I'll do this both ways. So I'm going to choose x to be 0. And when you do that, you get 4y equals -8, which means y is -2. And now I'll choose, so 0, -2, that would be our y-intercept since we chose x to be 0. If we let y be 0, get -2x plus 4 times 0 is -8. We'll get -2x equals -8. And so x is 4. And so you can graph these 2 points and draw the line. Now let's say you chose to go the other route and you wanted to solve for y. Put this in slope-intercept form. You get 4y is equal to 2x minus 8. We'll divide each term by 4 and we will get y on the left. Let's see, 2/4 x would be 1/2 x. And -8/4, that would be -2. Notice in this graph, if you start at our y-intercept 0, -2, which we had already graphed, and then you go up 1 and right 2, that would put you here. And up 1, right 2, you'd be at this other point. And so either way, you get the same line. So you should choose the technique you prefer. Let's go ahead and move on to number 12. But I do want to mention that you should be able to do both of these. Number 12. So I think 4 does not go into 9. I don't think I want to use the x-intercepts, x and y-intercepts here. So let's go ahead and solve for y. Whoops, I didn't finish that up. So let's see, -4x on each side. And then we'll divide by 3. And we get y is equal to -4/3 x plus 3. So we'll start at, well, slope's -4/3. We'll start at 0, 3, our y-intercept. And from there we go down 4. And then our run is 3, so we'll go right 3. So down 4, right 3 puts us at 3, -1. And there's your line. And I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here, and I'll finish the rest of the problems in a second video.